What is innovation? Is it integrating technology? Is it upgrading suspension? Is it updating something that has always been and may always be the way that we see it? Or is true innovation throwing the proverbial box that we all live inside of into the recycling bin and grabbing at things that we never before thought possible, things we were sure wouldn't come to be? To me, this is so much more than innovation. It's reimagination. It's making something new in a way never done before, and it's things like this that have Polaris written all over it. This is the story of the Polaris Scrambler, its beginnings, return from retirement, and ultimately its reincarnation. This is Project White Lightning, and the men and women behind the 55-inch Polaris Scrambler and Sportsman 1000S.
Well, particularly the first Scrambler that came out, the three-wheeler, that was our first run into ATVs. So it was received as such, a snowmobile company coming out with an ATV. As we went on, the Scrambler became known as a four-wheel drive sport quad, 500 four-strokes, 400 two-stroke engines, all the way up into the early 2000s before it went away briefly. The DNA of the Scrambler has been high-end performance and also very capable. Why we end up with a four-wheel drive vehicle, plenty of horsepower, and it's a more capable sport quad. I think that target buyer is still the same person. They're looking for a capable ATV. They can go off-road, they can go through the mud, they've always been able to haul something with, and they can go there faster and more comfortably than any other vehicle. In the mid-90s, there really wasn't much competition along those lines for the Scrambler 400 and 500. The closest thing would have been your typical straight axle, two-wheel drive sport quads, but nothing in four-wheel drive, and that's what really sets Polaris apart, was not only being four-wheel drive, but also having our on-demand all-wheel drive system works really well for both the trail and the mud.
The original Scrambler truly set the stage for sportier four-wheel drive ATVs that wouldn't come to market for quite some time. And truthfully, the solid rear axle design of the Scrambler in the first generation chassis limited its abilities when the ruts got deep and lower performance vehicles with independent rear suspension would be able to go further. However, the run the Scrambler had was no small feat, staying in production from 1995 until 2012, with very little being changed to the overall functionality. The Scrambler had truly bridged the gap from two-stroke days to the now completely switched over four-stroke ATV marketplace. But there was no longer the demand from the market for a solid axle four-wheel drive ATV, when sport utility independently suspended ATVs had become so popular and, more importantly, capable.
We had the Scrambler and we had the Trail Boss, and those were our sport models. And my very first project was the Predator. And the Predator is two-wheel drive, solid axles race quad, right? And that was our mission. And so we came out with the Predator, and the Predator did great the first few years, and actually took away some from the Scrambler. And the Scrambler just didn't get updated. We were focused on the Predator, and then a few short years after that, we started really working on revamping the Sportsman, which was our bread and butter. We were selling 100,000 Sportsmans a year back then. We were working on revamping the Sportsman. That was what became the Sportsman XP, which we released in 2009. Put a ton of time into making the best Sportsman we could back then. And the Scrambler kind of fell off the map because we had the Predator, we had the Outlaw at that point too. This Outlaw came out, I think, in 06. So we had an IRS sport quad, we had a regular straight axle sport quad, and we had this all new Sportsman. It was kind of, why do we need the Scrambler anymore? Well, the sport market took a dive with the economy. The Razor came out around the same time, and that became a big fad for Glamis and all these places. So eventually the Outlaw family died off, and that's when we said, man, we need to bring the Scrambler back. Kind of the quickest and best way that we could do that was take what was already a very successful chassis that worked really well, the Sportsman XP, and reskin it to look like a Scrambler. Now we got a very capable chassis with a sporty look to it. It's a little bit lighter, and we can make them quickly.
When the Scrambler made its return in the XP chassis, it got an all-new bodywork, which was very edgy for the time, maintained the look with the pointed fenders and the aggressive look of the earlier Scramblers, which were also very cutting edge for their time.
The 2013 Scrambler and the XP chassis really changed the sport four-wheel drive marketplace, but at a time when side-by-sides were stealing the spotlight, was there really room for more?
I'm not a marketing expert, but I believe the Scrambler target customer is someone who, first of all, likes the challenge and the fun of riding an ATV. They don't want a cage around them. They want open air, be able to see what they're doing, and they want to be able to influence the vehicle with their body. The big difference between an ATV and a side-by-side is, Both of them have steering controls, a throttle and a brake. That's all you got with a side-by-side. With an ATV, you have the added aspect of being able to push and pull on the handlebars, standing up, sitting down, leaning left, right, forward, back. You can manipulate the vehicle with your body.
And it was for these exact people that Polaris decided to do something completely different, to not wait for the competition, but to yet again create a new market.
Luckily in my career, I've got to see a lot of new segments be born. You know, even when we revamped the Sportsman, that was a pretty big deal because we put a much bigger engine into it and we really went after suspension travel and 14-inch wheel. That was a step, right? I was there for the Outlaw IRS, the first IRS Sport Quad. I thought that was an all-new segment, and that was pretty cool to work on. Then obviously the RZR was a huge one for us. I mean, we came out with the RZR, and we thought at one point that was going to be, you know, maybe we'll sell 2,000 a year, and we were really worried about going too wide with it, right? That first RZR was 50 inches, and like, let's do this, and then we just kept making it wider, giving it more suspension travel, making it longer. And it just kept going and going, and it's still going to this day. And it's just really cool to see these new segments develop. I don't know exactly what markets are going to take off. It seems to be if you make something that's just badass and gets people places faster than they could ever go before, they buy it.
This new platform was a ground-up effort. It came from some guys out in the shop, some engineers and some technicians decided that they wanted to try something different. And so they started out with the basis of the XP chassis and built it into something similar to what you see now. They went out, they drove it, they got executives and leadership on the vehicle and convinced them in that way that this was worth pursuing. New ideas like this are still fairly organic at Polaris. These ideas a lot of times are built by employees on their own time or in their spare time. They really have a passion for the product and they have a passion for their idea and they put it together. They find time to do it. Sometimes it's during work hours and it spills over into the evenings, and sometimes it's in employees' garage at night and they'll come up with an idea and then present it. Say, you got to get on this thing, you won't believe it.
For us on the outside, it's really easy to just say, yeah, great idea, let's take it to market. But when it comes to the core of this idea, it takes a whole lot more to take this from a concept like the White Lightning to an actual consumer product.
Yeah, so from the research we've done, you know, although a smaller market, this is person's normally a guy, he's in his 40s, fairly affluent. He could afford a side-by-side, it's not that. You see a lot of the market going to side-by-side now, but this customer, they like the rider active style. Possibly they're coming off a motorcycle, possibly they just want to ride alone. Maybe they've got a spouse that's like, no, I don't want to ride with you, I want to ride together and I'm going to ride my own machine. So they've probably experimented with big bore already. If you look at that market today, we haven't done too much there. Competition hasn't done a lot there, so there's a big glut of customers today that really haven't done anything for 5 or 6 years. So they're ready to move into something new, and we needed to give them a reason to move up. So my role as a product director, you know, to really look at what's out there for product today, talk to the customer, see, you know, really act as a voice of the customer. So just figure out what features would delight them, and then in the background, some things that they probably don't even know to ask for that we're going to come in and try to create a product that, you know, really keeps customer happy at the right price point. If you look at a couple of fundamental things about that machine, you know, the stability, and if you look at the trails today, a lot of these single track trails are wider based on what's going on side by side and how much volume is there. And if you ride a 48-inch machine now, you're constantly like in and out of that trail. So this vehicle lets you kind of stay in that trail. When you go to the more suspension, how do you get that and still keep the stability? Well, we wanted to do that. You got to go a little bit wider. It's kind of just the basic equation. You know, the ground clearance is obviously a huge deal. When we brought those machines out to the desert, if you see a rock in front of you, totally expect to case the thing in the old days, and now it's like, I made it over that thing. I mean, the 14 inches of clearance on that thing's pretty amazing. So that's kind of where we went there. And if you look at the suspension alone, you know, it's the craziest suspension we've ever put on an ATV. I mean, it's rivaling sled stuff. It's higher tech than a lot of stuff we're putting on side-by-side today. Big dollar stuff, but we chose to go there because we know this customer is looking for something different, something premium. They can really play with. You can essentially do all kinds of playing with those springs to get dialing exactly what you want, and this customer likes to do that.
With the concept moving along, it was time to take this vehicle to full production. Make sure you tune in next week where we're going to talk with more of the Polaris Engineering team about what it took to break the 50-inch barrier and the struggles that they encountered along the way. Thanks for watching Dirt Tracks TV. If you liked the video that you just saw, please click the like button as well as comment below. You can subscribe to our page right here and also ring the bell if you want to be notified of any future videos coming out on Dirt Tracks TV's YouTube page.